This video explains the differences between high-pressure air bottles and CO2 bottles. The bottle on the lower side here is a Tippmann 48 cubic inch 3000 psi bottle, and up here is a 20-ounce CO2 bottle. High-pressure air bottles can use both compressed air or nitrogen, sometimes called N2. Those are both used interchangeably. The CO2 bottle, however, can only use CO2. You cannot use compressed air in this. A very common question is, can I use air from a shop compressor in my garage for the high pressure air? The simple answer to that is no. This bottle uses 3000 psi. Some high pressure bottles use 4500 psi. Your typical shop compressor at home is only at about 100 psi. Paintball guns operate at about 800 psi inside the guns. CO2, because of the way it works, regulates its own pressure by boiling off the CO2 into a gas, and at room temperature it comes out at about 800 psi. The high pressure air bottle has a regulator on the top, and this regulator reduces the pressure to the operating pressure of the gun, once again about 800 psi. Some high-end guns do operate at lower pressures than this. Both of these bottles have a standardized fitting on the top. This fits into what's called an ASA fitting. It's very standardized for paintball. Both bottles are exactly the same in that way and will work on all guns. Any gun that can use CO2 can use compressed air. That's not necessarily the case in the reverse. There are some high-end guns that can only use compressed air and not CO2. Why would you choose one of these bottles over the other? The first one is access. Can you get CO2 fills, or can you get high pressure air fills? Some mass merchant stores can only do the CO2. They cannot do the high pressure air. That can make your decision pretty easy as to which you want to get. If you have a choice, the high pressure air is always better for performance. The high pressure air does not change its pressure with temperature like CO2 does. CO2 can have problems operating in very cold temperatures. You're going to get very consistent shots, shot after shot, with your high pressure air. And if you fire your gun very quickly, full auto or 3-round burst or ramping modes, the compressed air will keep up with that rate of fire. The CO2 bottle will not. Your cost per fill at your pro shop is about the same for both of these bottles. Typically we see about $5 per fill, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on where you're going. The high pressure air bottle has a gauge. This will tell you how much pressure is left in your bottle, so you can always tell. The only way you can tell with the CO2 bottle is by weighing the bottle. CO2 is filled by weight. This is the smallest, or one of the smallest, high pressure air bottles, the 48 cubic inch. This one will only fire about 500 shots. When you start getting into the more expensive bottles that are made out of carbon fiber, you get both a lighter weight bottle and a bottle that can fire well over 1,000 shots. This is a very common and popular CO2 bottle. This is the 20-ounce CO2 bottle. You can expect about 900 shots out of the CO2 bottle. This weighs a little bit more when full than this high pressure air bottle. There are also several different sizes of the CO2 bottles. They start as small as 9-ounce, 12-ounce, then a standard 20-ounce, and you can also get 24-ounce bottles.